When you reflect from the woman that you are you surprised that you got caught up in a situation like that?
No,
Why?
because of there's some different factors. One factor is my former spouse is very charismatic, very charming, and um I had people when we were dating, I talked with my dad, and my dad said, "Beth, he treats you really well. Don't let him get away." I talked with some girlfriends, and one of them was like, "Beth, he treats you like a queen. Like, I wish I had someone to treat me that way." Um, and then when we separated the second time, I was told, "Well, but he does all the sound at fellowship, and he dances in fellowship, and he does all of this and all of that." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's at fellowship, that's out in public, but you're not behind my closed doors at home to see what's going on." And what has been going on for the last 19 years. So he very much charms people and um, dupes them. It's He's not, as far as I know, he's not been officially diagnosed as narcissistic, but we fellowshipped with a counselor, and she told me one time, she said, "Beth, he's a narcissist." And I was like, "Really?" She goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, he's a narcissist." And then one of my therapists pulled out her DSM and she went through the narcissist list, and I was like, "Yeah, every single one of those. That's that's who he is." He was diagnosed with bipolar, but he was never, that I know of, formally diagnosed with narcissism. So when I started to understand what narcissism is and how it functions and how people, the facade that's there, I was like, well, yeah, no wonder I was taken in. No wonder everyone around me was taken in, and everybody thought he treated me so well because that's what he wanted us to believe. But we all know that sooner or later, the facade cracks and falls apart. The mask comes off, and it did, obviously.
That's exactly what I call it. I was like, the mask will always eventually fall off. And I speak to so many women who are abused, and this probably goes for men as well, is that the abuser, very charming, very charismatic, especially in public, because that's the mask that they design, right? And then when they take it off, is it's with home because they can only allow their victim to see that side of them. And there's always that saying that there's there's a victim born every minute for an abuser, because the abuser will find someone because they're really good at finding who to abuse, right? And they'll beat them down, they'll abuse them. And then when they're finished with them or that person leaves, there's always someone else that they can find, and they leave this trail of chaos. And the reason why I asked you that question initially is because I speak to so many people who are abused, and they say the same thing. They're like, they're not surprised that they got caught up in that situation.
Mhm.
They see in themselves why someone would pick them to abuse. When you hear yourself say that, Beth, how does that make you feel, knowing that you're a target because of who you are for these potential abusers?
It makes me determined that it never happens again, that I learn from this, and I am extra careful that it never happens again. Um, and it also makes me want to educate women, want to um, want to let women know that if they're in this situation, they're not alone. There are others of us out here, way too many of us, unfortunately, out here who are or have been in these situations, and they're not alone.
What steps do you think women should take to prevent themselves from falling into this situation, or at the very least, I guess, not getting into it altogether or avoiding it?
That's a really great question too. Um, so I actually, I've done this twice. I have dated one man, and another man I was talking to. We were going to potentially pursue a relationship. And I actually am teaching women to do this and teenagers as well. Um, and I preface it with the story that I have done this myself. I'm not asking anyone else to do something that I've never done. So um, I sat down with these two men, obviously at separate times. I wasn't dating them at the same time, but obviously at separate times. And I ask really hard personal questions. I ask point blank, do you look at pornography? How long have you looked at pornography? And it's very telling. You watch body language, you watch um, their face, you listen to their words, but you also listen to their voice inflections. Does their voice get higher? Does it get lower? So you're paying attention to all of it when they answer. And is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. It is uncomfortable because some of the times you don't even know these people very well, but you want to know this information before you go into any kind of a relationship with them. So ask the hard questions. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. And if you're a teenager, ask the questions, or parents, ask the questions for your children, because I have an 11-year-old daughter. You think I'm going to let her go out with somebody before mama sits down and has a talk with him? Absolutely not.